Hello and welcome everyone. We'll start in a few minutes and just a few logistics here. So everyone will be in listen only mode while we do the presentation. And we will have time for a Q&A session for 15 minutes at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions, please put them in the questions area of the box that you see there, and we'll answer them at the end. If we don't get through all of the questions, we will follow up with you after the webinar to get those answered for you. The webinar is being recorded and we'll be emailing it to you tomorrow. We'll give it just a few more minutes and then we'll start. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get going. I'm having trouble. Okay, so I'd like to introduce everybody with us today. So my name's Bernadette Goldstein. I'm the Director of Sales for Food Safety and Supply Chain at SCS Global Services, our Food and Ag Division. And we have Jessica Burke with us and Hagen Pazamka. So Jessica, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks so much, Bernadette. So my name is Jessica Burke. I'm the Delivery Partner Relationship Manager for BRCGS. I've been in the industry for a number of years, started my career in a laboratory doing food and environmental testing, and then moved into manufacturing, where I helped multiple companies strengthen their GFSI certification and build their strong food safety management systems. And then following that, I joined BRCGS, and I've been with BRCGS for about 5 years in multiple roles, including the gluten-free certification program, technical manager, as well as overall technical manager for the Americas region. And then in my current role as Delivery Partner Relationship Manager, my role is to strengthen our partnerships and work together with our certification bodies like yourselves to help strengthen the industry and facilitate and technical training. So that's me.
Thank you so much, Jessica, and we're very pleased to be co-sponsoring this with BRCGS and your team.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
And Hagen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Hagen Pazamka, and I'm the Senior Technical Manager for SCS Global Services, managing the GFSI programs. I've worked in the industry a little over 25 years, a little less than half of that in manufacturing and various QA roles, and the other half in auditing and technical positions. So I have been with SCS Global Services a little more than 6 months now, and am here to help build and strengthen and manage the GFSI standards, working with BRCGS, and am happy to be here today to participate in the webinar.
Thank you, Hagen. We're happy to have you with SCS as well and here. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the agenda for today, we've already done the introductions. We'll tell you a little bit about SCS company background, and then we're going into a pre-recorded webinar or slideshow with Jessica on the changes in the overview. And then after that, we will talk a little bit about SCS again, how we can help you with your goals, and then we'll go into a Q&A session. We should have about 15 minutes. So let's see, what's next. So SCS Global Services, we are an international leader in third-party food safety, environmental, and sustainability certification, as well as standards development. We in auditing, certification, verification, training, lifestyle assessment, and strategic consulting. We've been in business over 38 years, over 24,000 clients, 30,000 certifications, and we have all auditors in all major markets. And so right now, we're talking from the Food and Ag Division. So here's a sample of some of the food and agricultural services we offer. We do food safety training, and we do have a large lineup of BRCGS courses, including a lot of conversion courses. We do food safety consulting, responsible sourcing and advisory and verification services, and carbon services. Regarding food safety audits, of course, we do BRCGS, Global GAP, GMP, GDP, Harmonized GAP, HACCP, Primus GSF, SQF, and food labeling, gluten-free, non-GMO project, pesticide residue-free, USDA. And we have quite a few programs in our sustainable agricultural lineup: EFI, Fair Trade, Rainforest Alliance, Regenerative Ag, RSPO, SMETA, and Sustainably Grown. Okay, so now we will begin the recording, and we will see you on the other side of that.
Hello, my name is Jessica Burke, and I'm the Delivery Partner Relationship Manager for BRCGS. And today I've got the pleasure of taking you through the key changes from Issue 8 to Issue 9 of our Food Safety Standard. So to give you an idea of the current status of the food standard, we have more than 22,000 certified sites and a 5.3% year-over-year growth rate. We operate in 126 countries around the world, with the top being Italy, followed by the UK, and then China. And we work with 74 approved certification bodies around the world as well. So this just gives you an overview of the Issue 9 timeline. The standard interpretation guideline and key changes document have already been published. We also have a number of other publications in progress, which will be published shortly, and I'll take you through those a little bit later in the presentation. ATP training will commence in September, and all of those courses are now live on the website. Auditor and site training will be available from October onwards, and audits begin the 1st of February 2023. And this is a firm cutoff date, which means that if you have your audit on January 31st, it will be to Issue 8, and if you have it February 1st, it will be to Issue 9. So as you can imagine, a lot goes into developing our standards, and it actually starts as soon as the previous standard launches, because we look at any information that's been collected throughout the life of the standard. We receive a great deal of feedback through things like email inquiries, certification bodies, and then, of course, a formal public consultation on the draft standard itself. All of the feedback and information is shared with the BRCGS standards team and the technical working group, which consists of international stakeholders, food manufacturers, retailers, food service companies, certification bodies, and independent experts. So the focus of attention for this rewrite has been encouraging a better understanding and further development of product safety culture, ensuring global applicability and alignment with the revised version of the Codex General Principles of Food Hygiene, which was released in 2020. And of course, to ensure alignment with the Global Food Safety Initiative, or GFSI, benchmark. We've also expanded our audit options to include ICT. We learned a great deal about the use of ICT throughout the pandemic, and we've taken these key learnings and incorporated them into the standard protocol. And another key theme is the enhancement of core product safety activities, such as internal audits and root cause analysis. And lastly, we have provided greater clarity for sites completing animal primary conversion and producing animal feed. Another thing we always consider is trends related to our top nonconformities. So these are the top nonconformities for issue 8. We collect a lot of data around nonconformities, and what we've noticed is there is a repeat trend of many of the same nonconformities year after year. And then we look at the associated corrective action and preventive action plans, and we have to ask ourselves how many of these would still occur if the fundamentals of product safety were actually enhanced. And so the next question is, what are the key fundamental concepts that would lead to stronger food safety management systems? The ones issue 9 focuses on are internal audits, root cause analysis, validation and verification, risk assessment, incident management, and traceability. Although issue 8 covered these concepts, issue 9 goes into a lot more detail, and the ambiguity has been removed. This will enable sites to enhance their basic fundamental controls, and hopefully this will mean a reduction in the frequency of these basic nonconformities that we see. So this is an overview of the key changes to the requirements from issue 8 to issue 9. In summary, they are product safety culture, HACCP, outsourced processing, root cause analysis, food defense, equipment, and animal primary conversion. But we will go over each of these in detail over the course of this presentation. As I mentioned earlier, we've also made some changes to the protocol with the addition of blended audits and mandatory 1 in 3 unannounced audits. Now, these are not new concepts, and the options are already available and documented in position statements. However, we've just incorporated them right into the standard. So let's go over the key changes to the requirements first. So the first one is on food safety and quality culture. Food safety and quality culture has been a theme of many presentations over the years. We decided to include it within issue 8 of the standard because we firmly believe that the culture within a company strongly impacts ability to maintain and improve food safety and quality processes. In fact, analysis of the root causes of many nonconformities across various versions of the standard demonstrates a proactive, positive product safety and quality culture within a company can actually make all the difference in the effectiveness of the food safety and quality plan and its consistent implementation throughout the site. The clause doesn't prescribe the exact mechanisms that must be used, and this is to allow the site flexibility to develop systems that are effective within their specific ways of working and the current culture prevailing in the site. It does, however, highlight the minimum scope of the plan. So looking at the exact clause itself, it is structured similar to issue 8. However, you will see that we have defined some of the activities that must be included in your food safety culture plan. One of the things that was identified by the issue 9 working group is the influence of behaviors on culture. And for this reason, behaviors is now included right in the clause. And these relevant behaviors can be identified simply by a manager's or supervisor's knowledge of the site. Though a site survey or through a site survey or artifacts of the behavior, beliefs, or attitudes that exist at the site. However, we do want to be very clear that we're not expecting the auditors to be auditing the food safety culture itself of the site. Rather, they'll be looking at the detail of the plan itself, how the activities were identified, developed, and measured, a review of the effectiveness of the completed activities, actions taken based on the results of the measurements, and a review of the plan itself. The second key change that has been made is to section 2, HACCP. So the clauses in section 2 have been updated to reflect the latest Codex HACCP principles. Now, this shouldn't be a major change for sites that already have a robust HACCP system in place. And most of the changes to Codex were already part of section 2. One thing we do want to highlight, and that we receive a lot of questions about, is around terminology used in certain regions of the world. Sites are advised to avoid having multiple plans with different terminology. Alternative terminology is acceptable by the standard, provided the requirements have been fully met. So you can call the plan whatever you want, as long as the requirements are met. Multiple plans are okay if the site feels it's necessary for operational requirements, but it is certainly not a requirement by the standard. And then one other thing to mention here is a change in terminology from the term sanitizing to disinfection, and you'll see that heavily throughout section 2. So to go into a bit more detail behind the key change, one of the key changes made to section 2 as a result of Codex. Codex has published extensive guidance on the validation of food safety controls. Based on this, Food 9 includes a new requirement to validate HACCP or food safety plans prior to any changes which may affect product safety, to ensure that the plan will effectively control the identified hazards before implementation. Now, much of this is already part of issue 8. However, issue 9 is a bit more prescriptive about the need to validate and document prior to implementation of any standards that would affect food safety. And so validation in this context could include a range of activities depending on hazards, such as a review of literature, validation studies, mathematical modeling, guidance received from local authorities or legislation. The key is that the site must have a mechanism to capture and review each and every change. Where sites have already developed effective HACCP plans and they're fully in place, validation can be achieved using processes developed within clauses 2.12.2 and 2.12.3 of issue 9. Outsourced processing has undergone a revamp, and this is an area which has caused quite a bit of confusion in the previous versions of the standard. Now, we did an update of this section in issue 8. However, the feedback was that this is still an area that is unclear and required further updating to add clarity. This is a vital process that can have a huge impact on your product safety processes. So we've updated the section quite significantly, specifically around the definition. We've updated the statement of intent, and there are new requirements that have been built in to ensure that any risks associated with this process are included in the site's HACCP plan, and that there is clear visibility and an agreed specification with the outsourced processing supplier to ensure no risk to your products. So this slide provides an overview of the definition of outsourced processing, basically. So it's when an intermediate step such as production, processing, packing, or storage is completed at another company or site. So basically, if raw materials are received on site, some of the processing steps are completed at your site, then the product or partially processed product goes out to another site for the process, and then is returned to your site, and there is a further step, including processing, packing, or storage. Then this would fall under outsourced processing. If your raw materials receive additional storage or processing steps prior to first arriving at your site, this is not considered to be outsourced processing, but this should be managed by the site using supplier approval mechanisms and raw material risk assessments and specifications. And if the entire process is completed off-site, that would also be outside of the scope and would potentially be considered contract packing, and that would be controlled under management of services. And we'll cover the difference between traded products and outsourced products in the next slide, as this is a question that comes up a lot as well. So for an outsourced process, the raw material is received on site. Some sort of process takes place at the site. Then some part of that goes off site to another company for processing. Product is then returned to the site. Additional processing, packing, or storage takes place, and then the product goes out to distribution.
If the product leaves the site and all the manufacturing processes are carried out by another site, never returns to the site, and then goes directly to distribution, this falls under contract packing, which is considered a service in the standard and would be managed as such. If a site purchases a product, stores it, and then intends on selling it, that's considered a traded good. So for traded goods to be applicable, and how it's different from an outsourced process is that for traded goods, you purchase with the intention to sell, whereas an outsourced process is an intermediate step that is completed off-site and the product comes back to the site before completion and going into distribution. So hopefully that's added a little bit of clarity around that piece. Another key area that we have updated is root cause analysis. Although issue 9 has not introduced any majorly new themes, there is a big focus on the evolution of existing core product safety practices. And these are practices that we believe, when strengthened, will lead to things like improved food safety practices, decreased complaints, and improved culture at the site level. And then in addition, they may also lead to a decrease in the number of repeat top 10 nonconformances that we see. So to give you some context, the top 10 nonconformances account for just 5.6% of the clauses in the standard, but they account for 30% of all the NCs that are raised. Root cause analysis is one of these core product safety concepts that we felt needed to be enhanced and is an extremely important tool to prevent reoccurrence and promote continual improvement. A number of the clauses in the standard specifically require root cause analysis, so we reviewed all of those clauses to ensure a consistent approach and better linkage to other sections for continual improvement. However, it is still up to the sites to establish procedures for its completion of root cause analysis. And these procedures should include things like a set of parameters that will initiate the use of an appropriate tool, who's trained and or authorized to complete the analysis, the method that the site will use to conduct the analysis, the records which detail the analysis and any subsequent preventive actions, and the methods for the verification of the completed actions. So the auditor will expect to see a documented procedure that includes this information, as well as evidence of any root cause analysis and preventive actions that the site has carried out. So we're all familiar with this approach to problem solving, I'm sure. It's all about blame, hiding issues, looking the other way, and firefighting. Obviously, an approach like this is not going to address the root cause of any issue or prevent reoccurrence. We have come a long way, but unfortunately, this type of approach can often still be seen in industry. Root cause analysis is designed to introduce a logical problem-solving process. It's looking for the process or system that failed or allowed the nonconformity to occur in the first place. It's not a blame game. We're not looking for who, but what. While it's always tempting to assume we know what happened, any hypothesis should be tested for accuracy rather than assumed. So don't jump to conclusions without supporting facts. And it's also important to note that root cause analysis is a completely different process to incident management and immediate corrective action, although these activities are often completed in close proximity. They must be considered as separate processes, though, to avoid confusion. But basically, the overarching aim is to introduce action which eliminates the cause and prevents reoccurrence. There are a few different techniques and tools you can use to complete your root cause analysis, and this is not a one-size-fits-all situation. The tool you use will depend on the complexity of the issue, and you may even use a combination of tools. The 5 whys technique is the simplest method. It's a question-asking method, and it's used to explore the cause and effect relationship underlying the problem, where the investigator keeps asking the question why until a meaningful conclusion is reached. Although the method suggests a minimum of 5 questions be asked, It's important to continue asking additional questions until the real root cause is identified, rather than drawing a partial conclusion. And then another tool is the fishbone diagram, whose name comes from the form the diagram takes as it's constructed. This is most useful when the 5 whys tool is too basic. So for example, where a complex issue needs to be considered in bite-sized pieces, or where there's a lot of data that needs to be trended. One of the key aspects of this type of root cause analysis is to visually lay out the cause of the problem. It works basically by breaking down the various aspects of the problem to allow the investigator to consider one section at a time and to visualize the relevant information. Another key change is to food defense. Basically, we have put more of an emphasis on food defense by separating it from site security and mirroring the food fraud section. This encourages sites to adopt rigorous food defense systems and enables them to choose to consider the 2 topics, food fraud and food defense together. But despite this new emphasis, the changes to the requirements are not dramatic. And if you have an existing system in place that meet the requirements of issue 8, most of the requirements for issue 9 will be met. Section 4.6, equipment, has undergone a major revamp. And this is because the topic of equipment hygiene and suitability for use in manufacturing, commonly referred to as hygienic design, has developed considerably since the publication of issue 8. So this section has been updated to reflect current best practices in the industry and is in line with legislative requirements that have recently been updated. For example, EN 162 2009 for food processing machinery, ISO 14159 2002 safety and hygienic design of machinery, as well as a new benchmark published by GFSI around building and equipment manufacturers and building and equipment users. Most of the learnings and suggestions from these documents have now been taken into consideration in issue 9. So this means the requirements now take into consideration the purchase of new, refurbished, and secondhand or new to the site equipment. There's been a new clause on installation or commissioning. However, it should be noted here that the expectation is not that sites go overboard with their controls. This should be proportional to the complexity of the equipment and the product safety risk. The controls put in place should always be based on risk. There are new clauses on mobile equipment to ensure that product safety is maintained when a piece of equipment is moved from one area to another, or even from outside of the plant. There's a new clause on managing the movement of static equipment to ensure that food safety is managed and the integrity of the equipment is maintained. There are additional requirements that must be completed by the site where battery charging equipment is in use. And just to say that there are also a number of clauses within the standard which may need to be considered in conjunction with this section, such as equipment maintenance, calibration of new equipment, and new products and processes. A new section 5.9, animal primary conversion, has been added, although the requirements are not all necessarily new. We have basically put the requirements neatly into one section to make it easier for sites and auditors to identify all the clauses related to this process. For issue 8, this information was contained in a separate position statement to reflect the GFSI benchmark, and it's now incorporated right into the standard. So there are a couple things to highlight here. Some countries have specific legislative requirements around prohibited substances, and this is now considered as a clause within this section. And sites are expected to operate a system that complies with these legislative requirements. Traceability, as always, is important for food safety and legality requirements for all food products, as well as ingredients and raw materials. And this includes all edible parts of the carcass. So sites must have systems in place to meet this as well. And lastly, sites should confirm post-slaughter times and temperatures to ensure product safety. Again, this is all within the position statement, and it's just now been incorporated directly into the standard. So that was a really high-level overview of the changes to the requirements. However, you can find more detail in the key changes document that's available on our website. So moving on to the key changes to the protocol, and no majorly new changes here. What we have done is just added to issue 9 what's already outlined in position statements for issue 8. We're just basically incorporating the detail right into the standard. So the first update is the 1 in 3 unannounced audit protocol. Due to the added confidence provided by unannounced audits, the GFSI benchmark version 2020 introduced a new requirement for all certificated sites to have at least 1 unannounced audit every 3 years. So because this is a GFSI requirement, it means that all certification program owners, including us, must follow this rule. We understand that there may be some challenging situations, for example, seasonal sites, and we've addressed those in a supplementary document, BRCGS 079. The next change is the introduction of blended audits. This is a 2-part audit where the first part of the audit is completed remotely, followed by an on-site within 28 days. Again, this option has already been in place for some time and documented in a position statement. So we've just taken it and incorporated it directly into issue 9. This option basically provides flexibility to the sites. However, I do want to say that it is just an option. It's not mandatory. Sites can still choose to have a fully on-site audit. And then I should also mention that for the blended audit option, sites are still required to have an unannounced audit every 3 years, and this would need to be fully on-site and unannounced. So this is a simple overview of the audit options available. So just to repeat myself as a reminder, the announced option includes the mandatory unannounced audit every 3 years, meaning sites with annual audits will have at least every 3rd audit as an unannounced audit. Sites that are on C or D grade will also be expected to undertake an unannounced audit every 3 years, but they will have more announced audits in the interim. The blended announced option is the new option introduced following the GFSI benchmark update. Therefore, this option is GFSI benchmark, so it's accepted by GFSI. Currently, this option is only available for sites opting into the announced program. And the option is planned basically in 2 parts. There's part 1, which is the remote audit, and that primarily focuses on documentation, whereas part 2 is the on-site audit, and that focuses on on-site operations like production, storage, and site operations. And then the unannounced audit option is available to all sites, although sites that are not currently certificated do need to recognize that the audit may not take place for up to a year from the date of application. This option remains unchanged from issue 8, except for the change in the window, which would now align to the 4-month window, which is the same as in the 1 in 3 unannounced protocol. Previously, this audit option required the site to have their unannounced audit within 9 months of their audit due date. So now it's 4 months. And lastly, this is a list of publications for 2022. Of course, the standard interpretation guideline and key changes documents have already been published. And over the course of the rest of the year, we will be working on the ones listed on the slide there. So additional module 10, which is global gap, module 11, which is meat supply chain, 12 is FSMA, understanding high risk, high care and ambient high care, the fresh produce guideline, the raw meat guideline, the raw poultry guideline, and then of course we've got air quality and product changeover. And those will be the ones for 2022, but keeping in mind that we will be adding others in 2023 as well. So I think the only thing left to say is thank you very much for joining us today. And I hope this was helpful information and gave you a better grasp on what has changed from Food Safety Issue 8 to Issue 9.
Crap.
Okay, hello everyone. We are back. Let me adjust here. Okay, thank you very much. That was very insightful, Jessica. So for some of you who joined late, we'll go through just a few more slides, and then we will open it up for Q&A. And before we move on to, I just want to thank everybody for joining today. I hope you receive value from this, and it is recorded, and we'll send it out to all of you and pass it on to your colleagues if need be. And you know, reach out at any time. We'll get through as many questions as we can, and then if you know, if there's some that we can't get through, we will answer you in writing. And then we are all available at any time to answer additional questions as they arise. So how to get started with SCS. So if any of you are interested in an audit or any type of audit, actually, contact SCS to receive an application, and then from that application we'll scope and price the audit based on the program you're interested in. Schedule the audit, conduct the on-site audit, closure of corrective actions, and certificate decision. So, and just closure about SCS. So we are known for our customer service. We want to create a streamlined and as pleasant an audit process as possible for you. So in order to do that, we are very careful with advanced planning to ensure that our work meets your schedule and work plan. We have dedicated account management teams. You have a sales account manager and a scheduling coordinator for each of your accounts, and all of us are available at any time. We do strive to answer any correspondence, phone calls, emails, anything within 24 hours. We have flexible scheduling options, and we are a one-stop service for all of your training and certification needs. We offer competitive pricing and bundled service discounts on any of our certification and audit services. And so this is our sales team. If any of you have would like to get in touch with us for quotations or any questions, we are certainly available. And let's move on to questions. And Hagen is going to field these. Okay.
There are there were a couple of folks, looks like we're having trouble with sound, but I'm guessing
Oh, no.
it was just the two because I didn't hear anything from anybody else. Lori and Jeff, I hope you guys got that worked out. I think you're the only two that mentioned they didn't have sound. We had another question. Our product is pasteurized off-site and returned to our site with no further packaging or processing. We included this as a process preventative control in our food safety plan. But we had an auditor say it is not a PPC because it does not occur at our site. Per this standard, would we want to still list it as a PPC, or is this auditor correct? Stephanie, clause 3543 does state that anything that is processed as part of your outsourced process does have to be part of your site's food safety plan, your HACCP plan. So I don't know if that means the auditor was right or wrong, and I don't have the complete details here, but I'm telling you what the edition 9 standard does say about this topic. So if you have any other questions, you can feel free to contact us, but I hope that answers your question. Any other, let's see. All right, so it looks like Jeff got his sound figured out. Yay, Jeff. Let's look at another question here. Is the blended audit recognized by GFSI? Yes, it is. The fully remote audit is not. So blended is okay, fully remote not recognized by GFSI.
And let me just, so I see Lori was not able to get her sound resolved. So Lori, I apologize for that. Like I say, there will be the pre-recorded or the recorded webinar. We'll be sure to get that to you. You should receive it in your email tomorrow, but if not, please reach out.
Any other questions? Let's see. Are there any new preferred validation steps for the HACCP plan with I-9? I wouldn't say there's anything new preferred. Jessica, is that anything that I'm not sure what you're asking, but
Yeah, I think not preferred. It would sort of be up to you to decide for your own site and your own processes what makes the most sense for you. So we don't necessarily prescribe any preferred methods.
all right. Let's see. We've got another unannounced audit. When can auditors show up? So the audit can take place anytime in that 4-month window before your re-audit due date. If that didn't answer your question specifically, Doreen, I don't know if you're talking about, what time of day they can show up, but as far as just when the scheduling will be, it's anytime during that 4-month window. Alex, for the 1 and 3 year unannounced audit, is it a 3-month or 4-month window prior to the previous audit date? Also, are there any blackout dates within the audit window? So the window before your re-audit due date to have that unannounced is 4 months. So that's your window. Your re-audit due date is set, and then 4 months prior to that is your window. Blackout dates per se, yes, you can request blackout dates. There is a limit of 10,
Yeah.
and they do have to have justification. Doreen is asking before or after. Doreen, I'm not sure before or after what. Let's go on down to the next one. Since issue 9 starts in 2023, does that mean our first unannounced audit would come as early as 2025?
Do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, Jessica, you might want to.
No, that's okay.
This is where things get tricky, so I'm gonna let the expert handle this one.
No worries. So the unannounced audit isn't a result of issue 9. The unannounced audit, mandatory unannounced audit, was actually introduced by GFSI and us back in 2021. Now we have incorporated it into issue 9, but it was previously already a requirement that was set out in a position statement to Food 8. So basically, we introduced it in 2021. That year was kind of a buffer year to tell everybody it was coming, and then basically the unannounced audit needs to take place in 2022, 2023, or 2024 if you're a previously certified site. So I hope that makes sense. Hagen, if I didn't describe that correctly, or you think it could be described better, please feel free.
You did great. Yeah, I think that's just something that's a little bit confusing for everybody going into this new, but you did. That's how I understood it, so I think you helped out.
It's hard to explain it right sometimes. So
yes. Does disinfection still carry essentially the same definition of sanitation? So for disinfection, that's the process or act of destroying pathogenic microorganisms, removing most of the organisms present on surfaces. Essentially the same thing as sanitation. I think just giving it more of a specific definition, if that makes sense. So you're trying to remove pathogenic microorganisms, not just the dirt.
And just to
Hagen.
add to that, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I want to go back to the unannounced audit because another clarification question came up. So after we do this sanitation, let's go back to the unannounced question.
Sure. All I was going to say is just to add to that, it's important to keep in mind that anything to do with cleaning and sanitation is always risk-based. So it's not to say that every site is going to have the same level of or same processes for their cleaning. If you're working with high-risk products, your cleaning procedures are going to be much different than those that are dealing with low-risk products. So I just wanted to throw that in there as well.
So
awesome.
it looks like you could see it, Hagen, but the
That
clarification.
we needed to go back to.
Yeah, and so the comment is for the 1 and 3 year announced audit, is it a 3-month or 4-month window prior to the previous audit date? Also, are there any blackout dates within the audit window?
Bernadette, you broke up just a little bit. So we
Okay,
covered
so-
blackout dates already. What was the other
Okay.
question?
Is the in the 1 and 3 year unannounced audit, is it a 3-month or 4-month window prior to the previous audit date? Did we cover that?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yes,
thanks.
4 months.
it's 4 months before your re-audit due date. How will you know when, which year you will have the unannounced audit? That is going to be determined by the CBs. We have been audited 2 years. Do we still have another year to be audited unannounced? If you've been audited for 2 years, you should be in the unannounced year at this point. All right. Any other questions?
Well, if no other questions, so Jessica and Hagen, can people reach out to you directly, or would you prefer they contact someone in sales and we punt a question to you, or what are your thoughts?
I'm open to either way. We also have
either is fine.
Yeah, we also have an email, it's inquiries@brcgs.com. That's always a good email address to use because the people that monitor that email will make sure that it gets to the right person. So if you forget my email address, just use that one.
Looks like we had one more late question. Let's tackle this one because this is another tricky one. We are seasonal, blackout dates for seasonal plants. Jessica, I'm going to let you field that one.
Yeah, so basically for seasonal plants, obviously unannounced audits are difficult, and we understand it's a shorter season. So basically it's by like a pro rata situation. So if your season is a 2-month long season, then that 10 days turns into 5 blackout days. So that's basically how you're going to calculate your blackout date. So take your, so if it's 4 months and 10 days, then divide that 10 by however long your season is.
All right, I think that probably the end of the line for, oh, one more. All right, one more. What day, this is an easy one. What date will become edition 9 effective? So it's effective now. The standard has been released. It was released in August. Implementation is February 1st. So you must have it implemented at your facility by February 1st.
Okay. Any other last minute questions? All right, well, I guess we'll close up. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. Like I say, I hope you received value, and It was a pleasure to have you with us, and please reach out if we can be of assistance in the future with your BRCGS or any other endeavors. Okay, and thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Hagen.
Thank you so
Hagen.
much.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone, for joining us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.